Okay. I usually do things on my computer, but I realize my Wi-Fi hasn't been very stable, so this should work fine, right? Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am privileged, honored to be here with David Poole, and this amazing soul that I just recently met. He's from England, but he lives in Cognac, France, with his beautiful bride. And I've been able to, I mean, he's inspired a whole bunch of us to take our lives to another level as co-authors of best-selling books. So with that introduction, I would love to know, David, how this all came about. You know, I have you this is not what you've been doing your whole life. So how did you get into doing what you're doing right now?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for bringing me on here and introducing me in such a nice way. I really appreciate that. And Sharon, your energy is very well spoken about, especially in my house. Before we get into this, I was in the living room on Sunday, and I can hear this American lady go, blah, 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 blah. and I go into the kitchen and my wife's cooking, and I said, who are you listening to? Because she normally listens to, Emily does a lot of Asian cooking, and there's a YouTube thing called Cooking with Morgan. I said, that's not her. She said, no, that's Sharon. She's talking to Rob. I'm like, she's cooking away and she's listening to your interview, you and Rob. So,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, a few minutes later, I hear her giggling away to something that you or Rob must have said, or what have you not. To answer your question, how did I get into this? If I go from the mind, the answer's gonna take all day. If I go from the heart, I would tell you that it felt right. So, from a business point of view, you go, what's your business going to be? What's your product? What's your service? How are you going to monetize it? And you see the end goal, and then you pull the thread and you pull it backwards, and you find your starting point of where you're going to start. I've done that a million times, Sharon. I've been involved in lots of different businesses, my own business and what have you not. And this was more of a case of, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to show people how quickly they can write a book. So I started off with this, and my content in this book took me 1 hour and 38 minutes to do.
Wow.
And the idea was to show people that they can take action. And I know that you and Rob and Sean talk about imperfect action, done is the new perfect. And this really was in alignment with that message there. And I went out for a walk, and I literally got a pen and I wrote down the chapters on my arm that I wanted to speak about. And I got my phone, I put my headphones in, and I started talking into my phone. And there are 16 or 17 chapters that I contributed to, and each voice note was one chapter. And then I got them edited, put it together. And I thought, well, that was easy. Why don't I just ask a few of my coaching friends to see if they'd like to be involved? So, random page, we have got Lindsay Nelson. So I got in touch with Lindsay and I said, would you like to do this with me? And she said, what do I know about marketing? Because this is a marketing book for coaches. And I said, it's not what you know about marketing, it's what you know about people. I can help people with marketing, but I'm looking for some coaches to help me in terms of like unblocking self-beliefs and things like that. What can you add to it? So I said to everybody, right, I'm going to launch this book, see what happens to it. And I got a few people to buy it. And we got to Amazon #1 in the category. And I'm thinking, hold on a second. I've been able to say something that I really like. These coaches are saying to me, David, I can't believe you're letting me write in your book for free. This is just an amazing opportunity. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me, my family, and everybody else. And I ranked it for that category. So that was I released that book on November the 4th. I think it was the 4th. I'm sure it was my son's birthday anyway. And then before I released this, I started.
How old's your son? How old's your son?
He's 8.
Okay.
Before I released that, I was getting right. Okay, I'm gonna start writing another. So I put this one together, but this time I thought collaboration, a proper stronger approach to a collaboration. My path in business, Sharon, was very mechanical in terms of a sales process. This is what people want. This is their solution to their problem. How do we get people there? But I wasn't really working from the heart in my career last 20 years. It was working from a business point of view, the pocket, if you will, the bank. Nothing wrong with that. But 2 years ago, I had a spiritual awakening where I discovered that a very important lady in my life from a long time ago was no longer with us. And I had a very tough time. She came to me in my life as an angel and still does. And I'm very grateful for her. And she helped me see things in a different way. Love and abundance. And that's kind of how I decided to ask people to come and join me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done. You know, it's like, get it out there, David. It's your name. Don't worry about anybody else. That's a bit of a reflection of the old me. But what I'm thinking, I can help people here.
So what I'm also hearing, though, is that after that little spiritual awakening, you are valuing your relationships more than you are valuing how much you're putting in your bottom line.
Oh, crikey me. Yes. And value the relationship with myself as well.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, Sharon, I've been on record, I said it before, saying now, I didn't value myself. I could look in the mirror, put a good shirt on. Hey, I look good. I could go out there and get a success, bring a new customer in, bring some money in, go and buy something with that. But
didn't
honestly,
feel the hole.
It felt vacant. It was, and the more I did it, and the older I got, and the longer I kept on that trail, the more, I don't want to say my life was desolate. It certainly wasn't, but I felt that, well, to use coaching words, I wasn't living my purpose. I was not living my purpose. And it took my angel, no disrespect to my wife, my son, my friends, my family, and my coaches, but it took my angel to go, this needs to be looked at differently. So when the second book came out, I had this problem, Sharon, of how do I keep this book free, but at the same time, how do I monetize it so that I can make a business out of it to feed my family?
Right.
So we thought about layers, a free entry, a small upgrade, and a slightly bigger upgrade of, so free, $37 or $77. And I started looking for people. Would you like to be in this book? And I was thinking, love and abundance, love and abundance. How do I give? How do I share? How do I help other people? How do I promote people? How do I support them? Knowing that sometime in the future, if they need a business coach, who's going to be towards the top of the list, who they might want to speak with, myself. I came across a number of people, including a very, very nice lady. See if I can find her immediately. I can't. Her name's Jill Bowen. Jill, you know Jill, and she's in this book. And when I started to do this book, Heartset, she said, I know somebody might be interested in that. Some crazy crank called Sean G. Murphy. Comes with government health warning. Should. By Sean. And
I wondered how you met Sean. I was going to ask you that.
So Jill. And he sends me this random message. Hey, David, I'm in your book. This is great. thank you for the opportunity. In fact, as I'm saying it, I can hear his voice, this Hooks from Dallas. And he said, do you want to come on a Zoom with me tomorrow morning and just chat about this? I'm sure. I had no idea I was going to meet you or anybody else. And there he was with his baseball cap on and his Irish 4-leaf clover, talking about stuff. And I'm only accessing this through, did access it through Zoom and not Facebook, but I didn't have the big screen on. I didn't know how many people were there. I just thought it was me and him. I didn't realize, because I didn't press the audience button, the view button, to see there's like another million people there. He's having this chat, and the penny dropped that he was not just talking to me, he was talking to the world. And he just told people how important he felt that they should be in the Heartset book. So I was talking to him about.
And when Sean speaks, we listen. And
yeah, don't you just? I think like 13 or 14 of you jumped in immediately at the $77 price. But I was talking about love and abundance, about how it has to come from the heart. We think about business, and we have a balance of spirituality and humanity, and how does that both blend together for our business? And what I didn't know at that time was the result of meeting you and everybody else. And I start to hear your stories in the group and private messaging me. And the more this book went on, and the more we were talking, the more stories I was hearing, especially once the book went into publication, Sharon. And we kind of like stretching on from the original question of, how did I get into this? Now it's a case of why did I get into this? Honestly, it wasn't a case of like being told to do it. It was being directed to do it. And now I understand why I'm being directed to doing it, because it's gone from love and abundance to love, abundance, and community.
okay.
And at first, let's go back to this book. Tell people that you're in this book, jump up and down in front of your clients and get some exposure for yourself. And the same was pretty much with this. But on page 22, there's a guy in here called Aaron Nolan, and he said to me, David, this book's amazing. I'm like, thanks. No, you don't understand. Aaron's got 4 kids, and his wife left him some years ago, and he looks after all his 4 kids. His youngest is a toddler. And so he does very well in his business and looks after a lot of people, and he's a top guy. And he said to me, my book's arrived and my kids won't stop from jumping on me. They're so excited. And then I realized this is not just about business. This is about family. Yeah. It's about inspiring our family around us as well as inspiring our clients. But through the Heartset book, where you first appeared, this one, that took a whole new quantum leap. And when I go quantum leap, I think of the 80s show. Anyway, not your Bob Proctor stuff, your Dean Stockwell stuff. Anyway, people
you know what, I hate to interrupt you here, but what just came into my head when you were saying that is, as you progressed, you took an idea and you let it progress, and each time you do it, there's kind of a new evolution that's happening. And that's what happens with all of us. You're like my the first interview I did was just really, really awful, not even publishable. You're like the third one that and the others are publishable, but we have to just start somewhere. We have to do something, take action on an idea, trust ourselves and our angels. And that's what you've done. And your ability to get us off the dime to just do it. I mean, I've been talking about writing a book my whole life. And look at this. I'm now about to be in my 3rd book. I'm going to be in my 2nd one, and I can't wait to get signed up to do the 3rd one. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I see you catapulting yourself and others without reservation, without apology. And I was just curious, you know, how people coming into this who don't have that clarity up front can catapult themselves, how they can, you know, if you want to talk a little bit about how we can monetize this, how we can serve you as well as ourselves, what we can do with this book to make it go to the next level. Because I'm excited to work with you. This is fun for me.
Well, you make a really good point. And I don't know if you noticed, but I was making notes down here so I can pick up on this. To finish off on the Heartset story, that nicely blends into what you've been talking about, because you mentioned about the new evolution. People, and you know these people, I won't mention their names, they were saying to me, I've had a hard life, and we can understand somebody being in a hard life, and you've given me an opportunity that I never thought could have existed. And I've taken that opportunity, and it's made me do things that I haven't been able to do before, such as say my piece, write it down, publish it, tell the world about it. And that, David, was very difficult for me to do. And several people have told me that. And that's when I went from love, abundance to community. And I might have to go love, abundance, community, and evolution. And because it feels right. And I'm just writing it down now, because that evolution is there. You've recognized that. I saw it, but I didn't recognize it. You framed it in a way. You said to me, I do this without reservation. You're right, and that's echoed in the book. Publishers have said to me, David, you must get an editor so it can have a voice. And I said, no. We will proofread it for grammar and to make sure the words follow through, you know, and what have you not. But everybody has their own voice. I'm not holding barriers to that. I'm not telling people to have a style. It's Sharon's voice. Sharon needs to be heard. And when she speaks to her customers, they need to hear Sharon's voice. It's important for you to be able to reflect out that way and not to be tailored by somebody. I don't want to polish you up. You are already the diamond that you are. I don't need anything else on that. In fact, I'm against that. So you mentioned
the other piece of that, David, is that we're evolving all the time, and we're not in a little box. So I loved what I wrote in the Heartset book. I thought it was, you know, on point, did what it, you know, I gave people 7 tips how to get there. And then I realized, but it was very, you know, didactic, my whole life process. And then when we did the developing your spiritual self, I got much more personal, and I went deeper, and I told more stories. And frankly, I loved the entry that I did for the spiritual development. And it's almost like that had more heart than the Heartset book. But if I hadn't started where I started, I wouldn't have gotten to where I got next. And I'm like, you laughed at me when I said, oh boy, this is going to be interesting doing relationships. But I'm really looking forward to just playing with that and doing
play with it, you know, see what comes of it.
Yeah. So I am sorry, I keep interrupting you. So what were you going to say next?
No. It's you did it at the right time, because your interjection was fantastic, and I'm making notes here anyway as a good interviewee. You spoke about reservation. And not letting, you know, not me doing this without reservation, which is, so now we're talking about catapulting ourselves forward. How can we use this book? If I'd clipped your wings, then I don't think you'd be able to move forward with the book in the way that you would like. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about a lady who's in the book, in the next book. And I was speaking with her in a one-on-one session this week. Her name's Chelsea Pierce. she's got more muscles than Popeye. Chelsea's brilliant. And she said to me something, Sharon, that will resonate with yourself and the other people who we work with. I don't quite know where my goal is. I don't quite know where my focus is. And we've all gone through that, and it slows us down. And we're looking for this magic bullet, this magic pill of, oh, that's me, that's my legacy, that's my purpose, that's where I want to be. And I was speaking with another really good guy as well. Not that Chelsea's a guy. I was speaking with a good guy. You know me very well, Rob Cardenas.
Yeah.
And Rob was also telling me about, how do you project yourself to that point? And we was having a good discussion about that with his background in restaurant ownership and management. And I got talking about setting our end goal over the next few days, rather than into infinity. Where do we go? So bringing it back to Chelsea, she said, I've got skills, but I don't know how to take it. So I said, okay, if there's a subject that you'd like to talk about, Chelsea, what would it be? And she said, well, this confinement COVID stuff hurt a lot of people, but I think there's positivity in it. I think we can do stuff with it. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? Well, I think new connections can be born out of that. I'm like, okay. And that's going to be like a passage in the book, relationships, connections through and after COVID. Right, okay. She said, but I can't, where do I position myself as being a coach? As somebody that can help somebody with that transformation. So you're talking about catapulting yourself. And I'm going to say, done is the new perfect.
Right.
I will tell you in one sentence what Chelsea has agreed to do, and she started to do it. She's contacted a local pub in her area. I think she lives in Calgary. And she said, hey, have you got a function room that I can use next week on Thursday night? I don't have any budget, but I'm going to bring some people along with buy a few drinks. The pub's gone, yes. She's created a poster to talk about connections with COVID, and she's put some bullet points on there about happiness points about this. She's doing a talk. It's not a presentation, she's doing a talk about the positive things that we can do. She's printed that poster off over 100 times, and now she's going around local stores saying, can you put this poster up in your shop window, please? Now, if she's going to do that 100 times, she's going to be speaking to 100 people minimum. So she's going to be inviting them at the same time. On the poster, there's a little QR code that people can zap. That will then take them to a page on the internet by Meetup. It's like a free ticketing place. If you charge, you pay. If it's free, they do it for free. So they click on the QR code, and she's ticketing people for free. Brilliant. So she's going around 100 shops right now, getting this put up, and she's speaking to these shop owners saying, well, this is what it's about. Would you like to come along anyway? Great. She does that. The next thing, she comes back to Facebook and local social media, local bulletin boards and stuff like that, things to do, things what's going off in Calgary, posting up there for free. I said to her, you're from Calgary, aren't you? She said, yeah. I said, how many people do you know that live in Calgary? Oh, I don't know, 200. I went, great. Go and contact them. So contact them through email, your Facebook Messenger, text message. Get that out there. So that's what she's doing over the next few days. Then she's going to do this little talk where she's going to talk about the internal connectivity with, basically it's about relationships with other people and herself. Internal and external, ask a few questions, see where it goes.
I love what you're saying. And here's the other thing of it, regardless of how many people show up that night, she's put her energy out there in a way that I remember when I was a licensed professional counselor in Oregon. I just moved to Oregon from New York. I knew no one. And, it was like, do you have time or you have money? Well, I had time.
Yeah.
So I went around to all the lawyers and doctors, and I wrote a letter, a physical letter, and mailed it to hundreds of people and invited them to an open house. They didn't even come, but my reputation soared. And I had people from 4 counties coming to me that by recommendation, because my energy was out there. So
energy was out there. You're meeting new people and you're allowing things to happen.
Yes.
I create a book, Jill sees the book, she goes in it, she invites Sean. 2 minutes later, I'm on an interview with yourself.
Yeah, I love it.
Allow that to happen. So that's what Chelsea's doing right now. But how can you catapult the book? So I'm just going to run with one idea. So we're going to go random. It could be you. It could be somebody else.
Right.
It is Magda. You know Magda?
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to pick on Magda. How could Magda use herself in this book? So first of all, she could have paid, or she could have taken the free entry. She might not know what her end business is yet, like Chelsea. She's finding that out. And by doing things, look, I kind of like that. Well, that's interesting. So what can Magda do? Well, there are lots of people who are having summits, online summits. So what she could do is she can contact a lot of people to say, I'm a co-author in this book. This is a subject I spoke about. And these are three or four things that go into that subject. Would you like me to speak at your summit about this? Now, how long does it take to speak on a summit? Half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, if you're lucky, right? Could we go out there and find people where we can do a summit a week? Reasonable, right? So what if we did? And what if we went, okay, we'll do a summit or a podcast or an interview. So I've done my interview for the week with Sharon. Next week I'm on a podcast. The following week I'm on a summit. Actually, it was a summit last week with a guy called Axel. It was the interview today with you, and next week on a podcast of radio station with Christina Bloom. One a week. So if you want to catapult yourself forward, you've got this book. First of all, when you go to somebody that does a summit or a podcast, they want a little bit of, as you call it, skin in the game.
Yeah.
Why should I allow you to use this as a platform? Well, I've taken the effort to be in a book. Oh, okay. What was the book about? You got all these different journeys of why did you choose that book? How did you get into that book? How did you get into that book? What was it like? Who are the other people? What did you, and that's even before, what did you write about and what came out of it?
Right.
So she can speak to all these podcast hosts, summit hosts, and people that do interviews and say, I've been in this book. This is what I've written. You can see I'm serious. I'm not just somebody that's set up in my bedroom, twiddling my thumbs, going, I can be a coach, because there's lots of people like that. But what you're doing is you're separating yourself from being like the rest to going, I made an effort, I'm in this book, and now she, Magda, could do these summits. I'm doing them, as you can see right now. What's that doing? It's great, it's bringing people in. It's bringing new opportunities. Now, for me, my catch-all is, David, can I be in your book?
Exactly.
That's my first step. For Chelsea Pierce, who we spoke a moment ago, her first step at the moment is, where am I? Where do I want to be? But actually with Chelsea and another lady called Bridget, who's also in the book, I said to both of them, what if your actual product was something really cheap that took you hardly any time, it put a little bit of money in, but it was massive value and it didn't cost you anything to do? What's that? There's your phone. Do you have WhatsApp on it? Of course I've got WhatsApp on it. So what if you had an accountability group? What if your group was, or what if your group was about self-love? Or what if your group was about whatever? And you do these little meetings, and then you say to people, or you're on the podcast because you've been in the book, why didn't you come and join me in my WhatsApp group? It's only $10 a month. It's only $17 a month or $20 a month. It's not going to break the bank. And people are going, actually, I like you, Sharon. I've heard you. I've seen you. I've seen what you've wrote. I'd actually like you to be a part of my life. I'm happy to pay you $20 a month to receive your daily WhatsApp stuff. And then I know that if I need to, I can engage more with you if I want to. You're going to give me that love, that inspiration. So how can you catapult yourself? You don't have to come up with a massive program. You don't have to create a course.
Right.
Sharon, if your thing is accountability, if your thing is holding, some people want their feet held to the fire. If that's your thing, great. If your thing is about telling jokes and making people laugh, if your thing is about helping people network or whatever, come and join my WhatsApp group. It's $17 a month. It's $20 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in. I'll have a piece of that. I'm in. So you've got your book. You're now speaking at summits or what have you not. And you're doing one summit a week or one interview a week, and 20 people are watching you. Just 20, just 30, just a classroom full, right?
Yeah.
And out of that classroom full of 30 people, 2 people go, you know what, I'll join. At the end of the month, you've got 10 people.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, you've got 120 people.
You know, Dave, we were just talking about this morning on our daily awakening with Sharon.
Yeah.
And I've been a networker for 20 something years. I've had a lot of success in my life, but recently in these last 20 years, it's like, I can tell you, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that, which is good for the law of attraction to learn what you don't want so you know what you do want.
Yeah.
But I've also recognized that there's a lot of untapped resources. And one of them, for example, I studied for 10 years with a guy who wrote a book called At a Journal Workshop that had you create inner dialogues with various aspects of yourself and your life to see where your life was wanting to take you. So you weren't like hammering at yourself. And I started a course with that last year that was pretty good, but in today's fast-paced environment, it wasn't the right format. And I was wanting to honor Ira by doing it his way. And I realized, no, I can integrate my way and do it and really help people, because a lot of people know the value of journaling, but they don't know how to go deep into that unconscious and subconscious so that parts of themselves are talking to themselves that they didn't even know existed. And I helped heal myself from an autoimmune disease using this process. It's some amazing things based on doing this, and I can show that to people. And as you're talking about this, I'm realizing, everything is connected. So this Heartset book, it absolutely took me forward. And I fell in love with you because of your joyful energy and the way you you're just like, okay, let's just do it. Let's get it done. And, and then I did an interview with him and he said, okay, so when's my interview? I thought, this is awesome because, oh, David's a big shot, It's like, I'm a big shot too. Let's do this together and play. So I just, when I present this next part of what I'm going to be doing, I would love you to participate. I'll send you a link, So anyway, I kind of interrupted you, but I realized that what you've been talking about is the various ways that people can put their energy into the world using this book and leveraging the fact that we are now not only published authors, but #1 best-selling published authors. And that it didn't take this massive, when I was young, to become published was this massive deal. And most people would, it just didn't happen. But nowadays, there's no excuse not to be a published author because everybody has a story that other people will relate to.
Oh, I can make you a published author inside 24 hours.
Exactly.
You take your phone, you start speaking into your phone, you transcribe it, you get somebody to edit it, and you whack it on Amazon. Something that's come out of what you were saying there when you were looking into this particular course, and then you start to bring yourself into it, and then you were talking about the book, and I've written something down that both Rob Cardenas and I spoke about together the other day. It's the self-discovery of the skills that we've got already, but we don't yet value because we don't really see them. Or if we do see them, we just think they're easy because we're just good at it. We're just naturally competent at these skills. And when you put yourself in a different environment with other people, sometimes you go, I'm quite good at that, aren't I?
Yes.
I didn't realize that. So one of my things was I never realized I was an organizer. Organizing myself in in my office around it.
I need organization.
But when I'm on a project, one of my zones of genius is not so much the organization. I can plan a path, and I can bring people in, just like I've done with these books. And I didn't recognize that until my wife said, you're pretty good at bringing these people into these books, aren't you? You're pretty good at telling them exactly what to expect and what they're going to get out of it, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right, I'm good. Right. I thought, but it needed this book or these books to reflect that back to me. So you mentioned earlier, how does this catapult you? We don't have to see catapult in terms of how does it monetize me. It could be by looking at, I think it's called potential energy, isn't it? You've got kinetic and potential. And the potential energy is stuff that already exists inside, like a coil spring, right? And these transferable skills, they're all inside us, they're inside us already. If you take this book and you join this book and you go, I'm in a different environment now, and all of a sudden you start to see things about yourself. So I'll give you a really good idea with a wonderful lady. She's also in the book. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her surname. It's either Emma Petrie or Emma Petrie, depending on how she wants to do it. And she said, David, this relationships book, I don't think I'm the perfect person for you. I said, why? She said, well, I'm single and I got rid of my last bloke. I said, you're telling me that you can't write about relationships? Well, I don't think I'm the right person. I said to her, I think you're looking at it from a matter of perfection in terms of you need to have a wonderful and glorious relationship to be able to write about it. She went, you could hear the cogs go. Right. So if I asked you for 7 top tips on how to not find the perfect guy, do you think you could come up with some? Oh yeah. Okay. So if you can come up with some top tips of what you would have done instead of what you did, could you come up with something? Yes. If you could go back in time and actually do a few things differently, could you come up with a few things? She said, yes. What are you talking about? You don't know anything about relationships. And so she's gone through life and sorry, Emma, I know you'll see this. But everybody's the same. I don't think I can give any value to X because I haven't achieved Mount Everest within that field. Yeah. Hold on a second. Actually, you have achieved. It's just that you don't see yourself achieving in the right way. So how can you catapult yourself? I love the question, by the way. It's brilliant. It is not just about monetization. It is not just about getting your arse out there.
And that's like a bonus time point for people to hear, is that catapulting yourself forward it's more of an inner process than an outer process, because money doesn't solve anything. I mean, it's nice, it helps, it pays the bills, it takes care of things, but without that inner alignment and that ability to share who we are in the world, there's this hole, there's an emptiness. And so what you're, I'm getting more excited about writing about this relationship book, because I have to say, I'm not married and I'm taking care of my 89-year-old sister. And, and that has been the most meaningful relationship. I mean, it's just been absolutely amazing. So what you're saying here about energy, about from the inside out, that is what is the real catapult. And it takes a very special skill to be able to elicit that from someone, to be able to help them to recognize that there's more inside them than they even know they have. And that's what's the difference between a mentor and a coach, frankly. You know, a coach will teach you what they think you need, you know, what you ask them to teach you.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the question to ask, it needs a mentor to bring it up. And that's essentially what you're talking about here. That's what I experienced with Sean. And it's, you know, it's like he takes up so much of my brain space.
Well, what you're doing there is you're circling back to evolution.
Yeah.
You know, it's, let's look at catapult, think about going forward. But actually what we're doing is we're looking at what we've got. Can I ask you a question? Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Thank you. So, okay.
You're not going to ask me how old I am. I'm joking. Going ahead.
I know that your 76. When you're in the, right, you've been in the Heartset book. We're about to publish a spiritual book, but I want to talk about the relationships book. How do you think your entry and you using your entry can help catapult other people?
Lovely question. I love that. In what I'm seeing is that, number one, the first relationship, the relationship we have for our entire lives is with ourselves. And if we don't learn how to have that relationship and be in the discomfort of the places that we're not feeling really good,
Yeah.
so that we can move through to the other side of that. Because when we recognize that everything is energy and that who we're being, I mean, I haven't written anything yet, right? I haven't thought about this book particularly, but what you're asking me is, how can I help others? In a sense, as I share my story and they're my beliefs, my opinions, you know, because that's what they are. But as people, some people will like not resonate, some will. But I also recognize that what we're doing is 1 + 1 is more than 2. My other sister always says that.
1 + 1 is 3. You're talking about synergy.
and in a sense, what I get to do is give permission to love ourselves deeper and deeper. I realized that my, you know, when Think and Grow Rich as like, what's your burning desire? And I went, you know, bazillions of things. And what I came out with was my burning desire at this point in my life is to live in the deepest, constant gratitude possible, and to have the financial freedom, not just independence, but financial freedom to make a huge difference, you know. And I've got all these visions and stuff. And I thought, I don't have to know the how. I just have to be in the love and the gratitude, the vision and the belief, and help other people to recognize that they've got that. So that's
I'm going to mention a few things that you've just said, and then I'm going to hit you with a snowball. You said being in that discomfort. You said what, like 1 + 1, the synergy. You said give permission for love. You mentioned gratitude and freedom. I know that you lost your dad when you were young. You were 12, is that right?
I lost my mother, not my dad. My mother when I was like 13.
13, you lost your mother when you were 13. And as you're telling me this, and I'm thinking, being in discomfort, you've been there big style. Everything is energy. You know, transition from one to another. I love this thing about, you know, the 1 + 1, you know, and I've seen your dad, sorry, but not your mother there. But this giving permission for love, because I know that you had, obviously at 13 years old, you lose a parent, you have a heck of a bad time. But maybe I was looking for it, but I don't think I was. It just came to me. I see the things that you mentioned there, and from an outsider, I can relate them all back to the passing of your mother.
Oh, yeah.
And here you are today. And I use this word quite a lot at the moment. It seems to be like this golden thread with you, where you want to talk about catapulting yourselves forward. You've got all this experience, and you talk about permission for love and gratitude and freedom, and then you talk about having a relationship with yourself. And it must have really hurt, obviously, when you're a teenager, or any time of life when you lose a parent, especially a teenager. And we blame people, we blame ourselves, but you come back to here where you are, and you're talking about giving permission for love and gratitude and freedom. And it sits on top of the cake of how do you catapult yourself further. The thing is, the answers don't have to exist out here.
Yeah, absolutely. We have all of the resources inside right now.
And if you're unsure, you can ask.
Yes.
And it's crazy, because I'm going to go back to that word again, evolution. You mentioned evolution right at the beginning. This is almost like re-evolution. I'm not talking about revolution. Like, well, this is a revolution. You're going right back to the beginning, because we're born pure. We're born free of any sort of sin or whatever you want, programming. And what you're talking about here is just keep on going back to that beginning.
Right.
Because that newborn, that newborn is love. And that newborn wants to be in love, and wants to share love and give love, and wants to be close to you, and wants to feel you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you speak about evolution, and people think evolution going forward. But for me, when we looked at catapults, we're going forward. But to go forward, we're looking from within.
And Sean talks often about speaking from the scar, not from the wound. And for so many years, it was like a belly button lint picking and getting over things. And I mean, before my mother died, my younger sister died. And that was a huge loss for me. And I realized that in the back of my mind, she was this innocent being who gave me hope when I was a little girl, that there was more, that I knew there was more than this chaos that I felt like I was in. And this child, and then when I lost her it was like, and then when my mother died, I just gave up. I just shut down.
Of course.
But as I evolved and integrated my experiences in life, what I realized, she's my angel. She's always been there. She served her purpose. She was there. She made me know that I had that spark of innocence inside me and love.
And you know what you're talking about.
And from that, I get to be here today. So I realize I could go on with you all day long, David. We know that. I'm curious right now. You have a magic wand, David. You can spread your magic dust however you want to spread it.
Yeah.
What would you what do you see? Let me see what I wrote down here to ask you about the magic wand. What would be your deepest desire, and how can I be a part of it?
I think my deepest desire would be to live within my freedom that I create within myself, because I find it easy to trap myself. Just look at the news, look at the and things I shouldn't do, things I have done, and stuff like that. So for me, it would be to have more freedom of the mind, even though I know that the freedom comes from the heart. So it's more of a case of having more heart to overlap the mind. And I know when I do that, my time, my energy will be more focused on places where it should be rather than where it shouldn't be, because there are things that I do in my life that titillates me, to use a nice word.
I love that word.
Thank you. They're not really serving a purpose. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have entertainment in your life. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy your life. But there are certain things that I do that I go, I shouldn't really be doing that, but I'm doing it. So, for example, winding up other opposition fans in football and stuff like that. I do it every now and again. I shouldn't do it. It doesn't serve a purpose, and actually, it aggravates, if that's the right word, a chemical function, a chemical excitement of almost one-upmanship, and it's pretty much old caveman sort of thinking, you know, where you've got to be competitive. And I'd like to be able to, I do enjoy that environment, that's the problem, but I would like to be able to free myself from that and live in and wallow. When I say wallow, I don't mean in the bad sense, I mean bathe, there we go, bathe in a blissful mental freedom, because I know from like things that you mentioned today, you called me a big shot earlier, which is like tickled me. But you call me a big shot because I go out there and do stuff. And if I can have that magic wand of more blissful spiritual freedom where I'm in my zone, then doing more good for me and doing more good for the world happens. And that perpetuates. And I'll be honest with you, I have an ego, we all do. And I get the fact that when I do good, it helps others. But my ego also likes it quite a lot. Could you be on that journey? Yeah. How could you be on that journey? I think you are, to a degree. How could you put both feet into that journey? I think for me, it's more of a case of that's your choice, but I should be able to open doors, and it's also acceptance as well of allowing people the room to join me on that journey, which is a really good question, because you allow me to go deep into myself here. Through the books, I join people's journey and they join mine. And through the sunset to sunrise, which is the coaching thing that comes afterwards, I've decided that everybody will get one session of me each month, one-to-one session. And that's an acceptance of, don't put a high price tag on yourself, because you remove the availability of being with important people who can't manage that price tag. And this is not about the value of money, it's about the value of meaningfulness and action. Good therapy session, Sharon.
Well, you know, David, may I reflect back to you some of what I see in you? Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. Yeah.
Because I see you have a brilliant mind. I mean, your mind is going, and it makes links, and you take action on what you're thinking about, and you're ever expanding and I love that about you. But what I also see is that you have this huge heart, You have a huge heart, and you really do care about the people that you're working with. You love your wife. That I get that she's been an incredible, important part of who you've become. And I probably take another hour to really learn more about that angel in your life and that came back after she passed, in a way. But at the same time, what I see in you is you're in the I mean, all of us are in a process. I see Sean in a process as much as, and what I see with you is that integration happening, that your heart, you're leading with your heart, and your mind goes, oh yeah, but and your mind is good and your heart is good. And one is not better or more important than the other. And when you're off base, the more you're listening inside, you know it instantly. You know when your ego is in charge versus your heart. And so you're a beautiful man, and you've just come into my life at a perfect moment, and that is always true. And the only reason I'm not doing more coaching with you at the moment is my mind is blown, and I have a finite amount of hours in a day that I get to do all the things that I want to do, and it's so exciting to realize, God, I have at least another 20 years to do this expression of what's going on inside me. So I'm I can't tell you how delighted I am to spend this hour with you, and that you were, generous with your heart and your mind, and what you shared here were golden nuggets for anybody in any business, regardless of what they're doing, whether they're in our books or not. And I look forward to associating with, and frankly, I would have paid $600 to be in your book, so that's something to consider when you're offering your sunrise to sunset. It's just something that, I'm just loving being around you and being able to participate in our journey together. And I just wanted to thank you a lot.
Thank you very much. It really means a lot to me. When we can say things, Sharon, and I can talk all day, I can wax lyrical about whatever, but it's doing stuff. And when I built the coaching of the sunset to sunrise, it was, this is crunch time. I talk a good talk. How do I walk a good walk? And all right, everybody else, they're paying 200, but you're in from the beginning, you don't, you pay 50. And I thought, how can I just do more? Well, if somebody comes into the book and they want to write 600 words, they'd pay 77. And I thought, well, if you're going to be in the next book and you're going to write 600 words, don't pay 77, just pay the 50, and therefore you get all the other stuff. But the real thing for me was a lady called Diane Novak. She's in the book, a damn sweet lady.
I did an interview with her too. She was
and Diane said, I've got too much on right now. I've got too much on. I would love to join Sunset. Can't be part of it. Too much on. Okay. And I listened to her and I thought about it. And I thought, I think sometimes people have too much on because they don't know their path. Now, I'm not saying that's right of Diane. I was using her as a generalization. Right. I've got too much on in my life. Okay, if you've got too much on in your life, it means that your business is booming, in my opinion. Otherwise, if you've got too much on in your life and your business isn't booming, then you're doing too much stuff of the wrong stuff. And it was Diane that got me thinking about, don't worry about your value of what you think your perceived value is. Go back to the group and tell everybody that they can have a session with you every month. It doesn't matter whether they're paying 50 a month or whether they're paying 200 a month. There will become a breaking point at some time in the future. 100 people are in the group, so therefore I'm dealing 25 people one-to-one every week. Can I do that at that point? Probably not. But could I then bring somebody else in terms of, let's say I'm working with Sharon. What if, so everybody either either has a session with Sharon or a session with David. You choose which one, or a session with Sharon, Diane, or David. You choose. Sharon gets remunerated for that, Diane gets, and all of a sudden it's, you're putting everything in. I don't know if you use this in American football, you certainly use it in soccer. Leave everything on the pitch. Leave everything on the field. Get it all out, because that's the way you're judged. And like it or not, people are judging you and judging your business, and you judge yourself.
Yeah.
Can I say I've done enough for my clients, but ultimately I don't want to hurt myself? Can I say I've done enough?
You have to take care of yourself.
Have I done enough for me and my family at the same time?
Yeah. Because
a lot of coaches, Sharon, they go out there and they go, I'm going to help this person for free, and I help that person for free. Oh, look, there's a lost cause over there. Let's pick that up. I'll go and help that lost cause. And all of a sudden they're not making any money, you know, and they're living off potatoes from week to week because they're not taking care of themselves, and all this doom and gloom sets in and what have you not. Don't want to go down that line. How can I give everything that I've got that supports everybody in my environment? And when I do that, Sharon, go back to your magic wand. That's where I find my freedom in my mind. When awesome. I know I've been honest to myself and to everybody around me.
And here's the other part of that. As you evolve, and as we evolve, we're learning how to get our energy, our gifts out into a larger audience without depleting ourselves. That's because if we deplete ourselves, then we've got nothing left to give. I remember meeting Dr. Joe Dispenza in Bermuda, and he was at that time, I think it was Bermuda. Anyway, he had been, you know, just going, and he was realizing that he wasn't doing his own meditations as much anymore, and he was getting depleted. And he had to reinvent his business and what he was doing so that he could continue to be of service without depleting himself. And I've watched him since that time that I met him just explode. It's very exciting, you know.
There's a guy out there who you need to reach out to, because I don't think he'd respond to me because I drop into the masses. People would say that he's a political commentator. I would agree, but I would also describe him as a sociologist. He's actually a clinical psychologist, and he was recently on the Joe Rogan show, and he was talking about some things in his life about his health issues. And this is Dr. Peterson, Jordan Peterson.
What was the first name?
I'm getting it wrong. Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I couldn't get it. Yeah, you got his name right. The Canadian guy. He did 12 Rules of Life to life. And yes, because I used the word doctor, it bamboozled me. This man, I'm sure he has a political alignment. I'm sure he has spiritual alignment. He doesn't really wave that around. What he does, he talks about facts. And that fact is not made up in his head. He reverts back to case studies, academia, peer reviews, and things like that. And he's a very, very good man. He does not have an agenda apart from what's the absolute truth. That's my opinion of him. But like Dr. Joe, I would say that Jordan is depleting himself because of the ailments that he describes.
Yeah.
And we need people like him.
Yeah. We have to take care of ourselves. There's, you know.
We do. So, if we can't do that, bad stuff happens.
How can people get a hold of you? And what can we do? You know, like, I want to make sure that everybody can get a hold of you, get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook. My blog is not even
This is
current.
nice
So
and easy. Are you ready? If you know Sharon and you didn't know David Poole beforehand, and you want to get hold of David Poole, speak to Sharon.
perfect.
If you know David Poole, actually, I've got another name. I'll tell you about a political party that I'm in a minute. It's quite funny. If you know David Poole and you want to get hold of Sharon, contact me and I'll put you in touch with Sharon. She's on my friends list anyway. So in the UK, we have political parties like we do around the world. And I got really annoyed with politics a few years ago. So, but the politics in Britain, we can have a bit of a poke, some fun of ourselves. And there is a party out there called the Official Monster Raving Loony Party. It's a proper political party. Our leader years ago used to be a guy called Screaming Lord Such. He died. So the party leader then became his cat, and his cat was called Catmandu. But we've got a new party political leader now, who's been there for like 30 years. And when I joined, you've got to be a bit half-baked. You've got to be against the political spectrum and the political agenda. So they don't have we don't have a manifesto, we have a manic festo, right? And so part of our manic festo is, in terms of like global warming, is in our manic festo, we want air conditioning units to be pointed the other way around. So we're calling the, right? But,
so you can get the hot air out of the house.
yeah, right? Make it cooler outside.
Right.
And about 30 years ago, we came up with this thing called passports for pets. And everybody thought that was crazy, a passport for your dog. But actually in the UK, we have a passport now for our pets, so we can go to Europe and back. Anyway, when I joined, I had to have a name. I didn't want to go with David Poole. Now, I don't know, have you seen Monty Python? Are you a bit of a...
Yes, yeah.
Right. So I'm Sir David of Poole. Poole's a town in England. Sir David of Poole, brave knight. and they made me a minister. So you know how you've got like the Secretary of Defense and stuff like that in the US account, right? So we have ministerial appointments because we've got the Queen, so we have the Prime Minister and everybody's minister. So for me, they gave me, I am the Minister of French Affairs. So that has this like little sexual innuendo going along, the fact that I live here. But yeah, I'm Sir David of Poole, brave knight.
All right, on this note, David, I think we need to, we'll probably end on this note, and I will not cut it off, but I will turn off the recording and just stay there for 1 second, okay? Let me do that.
Thank you ever so much for this.